Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing.
Hi everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski here, taking a look at the feature race at Churchill Downs on Saturday. It is the Grade 3 Chilukki Stakes, going a mile, the 1 turn mile distance on the main track at Churchill for fillies and mares. 7-horse field signed on here, Craig, and it handicaps as a pretty competitive race. We've got the number 1 Coach installed as the 9-5 morning line favorite. No big surprise there. She comes in with some nice speed figures for a dangerous barn in Brad Cox.
Yeah, no surprise at all that she would be the favorite. When I was handicapping, I hadn't seen the morning line yet, but she was my guess as the morning line favorite. And I don't really have any qualms with her being that. She's certainly been in good form. She almost never runs a bad race. I do wonder if she might get a little bit over betting here, but we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, we can throw up the field of 7 runners for this race, and you'll see Coach is drawn down towards the inside in the number 1 post position. We'll see what kind of trip she can work out from there. And Craig, I said it was a competitive race because even though the number 5 Empire House is listed at 15-1 as the biggest price in here, you can certainly make a case for her as well as everybody else in here. It's not like there's a total throwout in terms of form, but some of them are going to have to improve to catch up to the speed figures that Coach has been running.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the 2 longer prices, Ice Orchid and Empire House, they are going to have to improve, but it's not like they're coming in off of bad races. Both of them have been running good, solid performances, just in not quite as good of fields.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race before we move on to the main contenders. And the number 3 Center Isle is really the key to how fast or slow this pace turns out to be, because she is a sprinter who's trying to stretch out to the 1 mile distance for the first time in her career. She's never been farther than 7 furlongs. And Craig, she possesses quite a bit of early speed. So I think she's going to be in front. The big question is, how fast does she go on the lead?
Yeah, it's how fast is she going to go, and can she ration that speed? She has shown the ability to set a pretty tepid pace in some of her sprint races before, so I don't think it's one where she's going to tear out of there and go too fast and set fractions that would eventually be coded in red by Timeform US.
You see that number 1 Coach shown second on the pace projector. I'm sure Brad Cox and the connections would be happy if she was able to get out from that rail post position to work out a stalking trip in here. Let's begin our discussion of the contenders with that morning line favorite Coach. And we'll take a look at her last race in the Twixt at Laurel when she was coming off a pretty substantial layoff here. And Craig, she ran a decent race. This was a very sloppy track, as you can see. There's a lot of moisture on the surface, but that shouldn't have bothered her because she's run well over wet tracks in the past, and she might have just gotten beaten by a better horse because the horse that finished ahead of her, Battle Bling, has been in great form.
She has. I thought Coach ran fine. Brad Cox has decent numbers off the layoff, off a long layoff, but he also tends to improve second start off as well. So with a horse like Coach, who has had some success at stakes, in stakes company, and even is graded stakes placed, I'm not sure he had her totally cranked up for that race. So I would expect a little bit of improvement here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I thought it was interesting, the trip that she got last time, because she actually left from the gate pretty alertly and was on the lead briefly. Then Fergal Lynch took her under a hold, put her down on the inside, and she just seemed to kind of lose focus on the far turn. You can see it in the running line. She goes from first to being third by 3.5 lengths around the far turn, and then she kind of re-rallied in the stretch. I like the fact that she re-engaged after kind of losing contact with the leader a little bit. Just shows to me that she's a horse that was pretty fit off the layoff, and I think we'll see another good effort from her here, second off the layoff. And like I mentioned, Battle Bling, the horse that beat her last time, she came back at Aqueduct to win the Turn Back the Alarm Stakes. I forget what the Timeform US speed figure was, but I know she got a 95 buyer for her subsequent start. So that's definitely a legitimate foe that beat her, and I'm not sure that Coach is meeting anybody here that's quite in that same league. So we'll see if she's able to win second off the layoff for the Brad Cox stable. Let's go from the favorite to the longest price on the morning line, the number 5 Empire House. We'll take a look at her last race when she actually achieved a grade 2 placing in the Zenyatta Stakes at Santa Anita. However, Craig, maybe take that graded stakes placing with a grain of salt, because not the toughest edition of the Zenyatta that we've ever seen, but I do want to give this horse credit because she has held her form pretty well since Jonathan Wong stretched her out in distance.
Yeah, she's in good form for sure. She's just one that, even though that was a grade two, I totally agree with you. It was one of the weaker races that you're going to see at that level. I think we saw the runner-up come back already and try the Breeders' Cup Distaff and was never a factor in that race. So it was just an overrated race. But this is just a grade three. My big problem with her is the top speed figure I could find in her past performances was just a 103 from Timeform US. That came on a synthetic surface, and I just don't think that's good enough to get the job done here.
I tend to agree with you. She's faced some decent company in the last couple of races, but maybe not as good as a quick glance at those form lines might suggest. And she's going to have to step it up from a speed figure standpoint to be competitive here. The number 2, Mariah's Princess, last raced at Keeneland, and kind of like the favorite we just talked about, Coach, was coming off a substantial layoff on this day and runs pretty well to be second. That is her striking the lead in upper stretch. She's ultimately going to get run down by a closer who was the favorite in this race, but I thought this was an encouraging first race back off a break, Craig.
It wasn't. She's a horse that had most of the success sprinting earlier in her career, but her last 2 starts, she has tried a route. She won a stakes race at Oaklawn as a 3-year-old before that layoff. And I found it interesting they brought her back in a route after that. I guess it's about 8 or 9 month layoff, and she ran just fine in that spot. So I think they figured out that maybe this is her best distance, and I have no real knocks on her. I think her return race was good. She made maybe an early move, and it was to what was a pretty hot pace, as you can see by those color coded fractions in Timeform US before getting tired, but she ran fine.
Yeah, she had looked like she was really figuring things out towards the end of 2021 when she won those 2 races at Churchill and Oaklawn. Obviously, something went wrong, but looks like she picked up right where she left off last time. And if she can take a step forward, second off the layoff, she has a license to be a major player in this race. We already talked about the speed of the number 3 Center Isle. Let's take a look at her when she was using that speed last time out at Keeneland when she won going just 6 furlongs. So she's going to have to stretch out an extra 2 furlongs here to be successful. But yet another horse, Craig, that is making her second start off a layoff. And I'm not going to be surprised when she's able to move forward off this return effort last time.
She does seem to be a horse who runs well fresh. Her best races have come when she's first or second off the layoff. She had one, we'll see in her PPs, where she came back off a layoff and just did no running whatsoever. But when you look at her lifetime PPs, it looks like she does like the freshness. And what I also notice is when she makes the lead, she is pretty darn tough, particularly at that half-mile call. She's a little tougher to run down than when she doesn't. She's just not a horse who's going to make up ground. So I like what I saw from her last time. She has handled 7 furlongs in the past, so the stretch out isn't a huge negative for me as it might be in some other cases. And I think she can rate on that front end, because if you scroll back, you see plenty of races with those blue fractions where she was setting the pace.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what price she is in this race. I really wasn't sure what to do with her. She's kind of a difficult horse to figure out. She is a bit of an all or nothing type. She wins her races or she tends to finish nowhere. Those last 2 losses, 2 and 3 back, she was facing much tougher competition, but she really threw in the towel once things didn't go her way on the front end. So we'll see what we get from Center Isle here. She has plenty of pedigree on the bottom side to stretch out in distance, but I wouldn't say that she necessarily has run to that pedigree so far. So I don't want to put too much stock in that, the fact that she does have a lot of stamina breeding on the bottom side. And Craig, one more horse that is kind of tough to figure out in this race is the number 6, She Can't Sing. Let's take a look at her last race when she ran at Kentucky Downs in the ladies sprint. This was one of the best efforts that she's put forth in her career, finishing third to some very nice horses, including Campanelli, who came back and ran in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint for Wesley Ward. However, this was on turf, and all of her recent races have been on the turf. She's handled dirt in the past, but it's always a question mark whether a horse that spends so much time on one surface can transfer that good form to another one.
She's a real question mark for me. Just because, like you said, she has plenty of good dirt races in her past performances. It's just they've been in not quite some time. And she's a horse that just bounces all over the place, distance-wise, surface-wise. She has some synthetic wins on her card. So she's just a really tough one to get a handle on. If she were 10-1 or 12-1 in here, I'd probably be more inclined to give her a pass for running strictly on turf lately. But at that 5-2 morning line, I'm going to have to take a pass.
Yeah, I don't know what price she's going to be in this race. She's probably a tough horse for the bettors to get a handle on. I will say her trainer, Chris Block, has good numbers overall with a turf to dirt move, especially with non-maidens. And she has run well over Churchill Downs on the dirt course before. She actually registered a big 5-length victory against Optional Claiming Company back in October of 2021, which set her up to be 3-1 in the Chilukki last year. Didn't run well that day, but also didn't get the best of trip. So a horse that is definitely one you can consider in here, but you have to decide what is a fair price on She Can't Sing. Let's throw up our picks for this race, Craig. And I frankly went pretty logical in this race, the number one coach. It's not a race that I had a whole lot of interest in betting, so I did put the favorite on top. She just made the most sense to me. I liked her race off the layoff last time. She's got plenty of prior races at the mile distance that are going to make her tough here. So kind of copped out a little bit with that favorite. You took a more clever approach with the number 3 Center Isle.
Well, we'll see how clever it is. She's going to have to make the lead, something I think she will do. And she just has to prove she can handle that extra furlong. She's gone 7. I think she's going to need to set a slow pace. Sometimes I'm a one that preaches that horses need to go fast when they have speed and open up. But I think she's one that's going to need to set a comfortable pace and try to hold off some of the others in here. My selections, I have 6, She Can't Sing. Second, had I seen the morning line when I was making them, I would have probably flip-flopped the 1 and the 6 because I do prefer your 1 a little to her.
Yeah, we both have She Can't Sing in there. Kind of a difficult horse to assess in this race, but definitely one that can win if she shows up with her best effort. But as far as top picks go, it's the speedy number 3 Center Isle for Craig and the favored number 1 coach for me in the Chilukki Stakes on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.